Welcome to the Living in the Future podcast, where we bring to light specialized topics from life in the modern age. I know I haven't made one of these in a while, but I decided to just do a short little essay that I've written as the next episode. I've been quite busy, but wanted to put this up as I wanted to crystallize my thoughts. A few weeks ago, my wife and I stopped in Palm Springs for a short trip. Our favorite activity while there was to view the vintage modernist buildings. Of all of them, the one that was the most memorable to me was the Caliente Hotel, a tiki-themed hotel and restaurant complex. The restaurant was now vacant, looking for new proprietors, but the hotel was active and had a few guests. The hotel, as well as the mid-century houses, fascinated me and gave me the impression of an orderly and ordered time, looking towards a brighter future. This time probably never existed, in that the future that these buildings willed into being is the now of today. Though the simple lines lie to me and tell me there was a time when life was easier, America was purely good, and the entire world lay at the feet of someone like me, it is very probable that this never happened, or even if there was prosperity, there were still massive problems. I would, for example, not want to be drafted to Vietnam. This is also why I'm fascinated with the vintage tiki style, not for its appropriation of Polynesian culture, which it bears no resemblance to, but instead that, especially the vintage incarnations, represent a pure symbol, detached from any form of reality, of relaxation. The tikis, which symbolize their ancestors to the Polynesians, instead, in this incarnation, represent a symbol of total relaxation in which the participant becomes a citizen of an entirely fictional world where life is easy, fruity drinks are abundant, and perhaps members of the opposite sex can forsake the modest purity of a so-called civilized society and instead role-play the lives of a non-existent culture where the world is easier. It is this methodology of escape or realization that I find most interesting. To me, though it has not always been the case, this process is symbolized by the movie Vertigo. I have been obsessed with this movie most of my life, and though my fixation predates my knowledge of Chris Marker's obsession, I feel that recently I have taken to imitating his expression for the obsession, much like I feel like the movie tells us how we imitate all-powerful impressions and experiences. Just like the Tiki Hotel takes the image of Polynesia and imitates them to signify a good time, Scotty takes the image of the false Madeline and then seeks to recreate her in someone new. I believe, just like Madeline, or the character of Douana's image of France in Ousmane Sembène's movie Black Girl, that the Tiki Hotel would lose all of its magic the instant that it became too accurate to the cultures of Polynesia, as then we would see not only its citizens' relaxation, but their heartbreak. Much like Arthur of England, or the Camelot much closer in time to when the houses in Motel were built, we are all chasing false images that bear no resemblance to reality, riddled with Addison's disease and drug injections, in an attempt to make our current reality much like a fable. We all seek to purify our existence and make it resemble an ideal world which we lie to ourselves and attest can exist, if only we could just make ourselves like its characters. We live in envy of previous prosperity, but much like believing the false Madeline to be the real one, we believe that if we imitate the appearance of the past, we will get resource harvests like they did, when in fact the resources are gone, and we are simply imitating a previous civilization like the inhabitants of Gilligan's Island building a telephone out of coconuts with the hopes of getting the connectivity of the Bell system. In Palm Springs, my wife and I are following Scotty's path as well, making impressions based on the relics of a false reality, and then trying to reincarnate them in our vacation to give our lives the happiness and simplicity that those false impressions of modernist flat roofs project. Truly, I see this method of imitation and acquisition in all aspirations. As when we are children, how can we know the downside of any profession which we make a false impression of and choose to become, or any place that we make a false impression of and choose to live, or any lover that we make a false impression of and choose to pursue? I believe we are also always chasing the platonic shadows of our eyes and ears, desperately seeking to make them real in our own life, so that we may attain the reality of the shadow of happiness that we have seen in others, but somehow can never attain.